Good afternoon. Thank you again for taking time out of your day and welcome to another episode of Words of Life. We're going to be considering something that I think that it will be beneficial to revisit from time to time, and it is the use of our words. Um, our words have power, our speech matters, and I just want to look at a number of verses today, and the scriptures are just filled with a plethora of passages of ones we should reflect upon. What I'm getting at is this. Maybe you can relate where I have not given sufficient consideration, thought to what I am going to say at times. And that has not always worked out well. Normally, that usually works out to my detriment because I will misspeak or say something I shouldn't have. So I think it's wise to consider, take time to think, okay, what I'm about to say, is it going to be something that is going to be harmful? Is it going to be not what is pleasing to the Lord? So those things that are things we should definitely consider. But here's just a few passages what I want us to consider. King Solomon, whose son Rehoboam was not a wise king, he did not use words that were wise, and he was rash in his judgment and used poor counsel to thwart his decision making. And of course, it was his decision on what counsel to use, but unfortunately, he did not learn from his father on how to be wise. And let's just look at a number of passages that Solomon wrote down for us, inspired to write down for us, that will be beneficial for us to consider when we is from Proverbs 12 in verse. Our words can be like daggers or swords, and if they are not appropriately spoken, the words that come out, they can be very much like we are sticking somebody with a sword. I know that's graphic, but those that are wise, those that choose to use wise words, are going to ultimately bring healing. Song or Proverbs 15, verse 1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Those that can compose themselves and have the ability to, even in the most difficult of circumstances, a person who could handle a situation where their words are gentle, more often than not, they are going to have a positive effect. But those that are going to use words that are harsh, ultimately, more often than not, they're going to stir up strife, anger, frustration. And let us see one other passage from Proverbs, and that will be from Proverbs 16, verse 24. Pleasant words are a honeycomb. Let me reread that. Pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. So, again, reiterating the importance that Solomon is trying to instill in us, the way that our words should be, especially words that are pleasant, they're going to be sweet and they're going to be pleasant. They should uplift and strengthen us. It just, as we're not going to read it, but I would encourage you to look at James and how it describes the tongue and its power, um, that it describes that the tongue has the power to destroy. The tongue is powerful. No one can tame it. We have to have God's strength and have His guidance, His word to help us to use our tongue for the proper purposes, to use words for the proper purposes. Just a couple more verses, or a few more. First in Matthew chapter 12, and this will be Jesus speaking, and this really articulates the importance of our words. He says in verse 36 of chapter 12, they shall give an accounting for it in the day of judgment. For by your words you'll be justified, and by your words, signifying the importance of our words and our speech. So we have to be careful and not take for granted, again, that, well, I didn't mean what I said, or it doesn't matter what I said, and let us not be flippant or dismissive of how we speak to one another. And one final passage in the book of Ephesians, Paul's letter to the Ephesians. We're going to be looking at Ephesians 4 in verse 29. The Apostle Paul writes, "Let no unwholesome or rotten word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as good for edification according to the need of the moment, so that I will give grace to those who hear." So, you struggle with your words, and it is difficult. If we've grown up, for instance, with individuals that have been our influences, and if we're surrounded by people, and sometimes it's difficult if you're in a situation where you are around people that use words that are hard to hear and hard to listen, and individuals that speak in such a way that is degrading or that is vulgar, profane. It can be difficult, no doubt. It can be very difficult if you are living in a home that speech is, and there is things that you may have to make a decision as far as how to handle that. And feel free. We have to do our best because we are ultimately responsible for what comes out of our mouth. And yes, I know that circumstances may be hard, our influences may have been great, or still difficult, and we just have to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to live as how God wants us to be. So hopefully this video was helpful, beneficial, again, make us to think, to dig deeper, to meditate on His Word, for us to make sure that we are doing everything that we need to do to be lights, to be contrary to what the world would have us to be. So thank you again for taking time out of your day. May God bless you and take care.